Great, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you could tell, for a Monday morning, we have quite a crowd outside of all of you. But as I was just talking to both Jim and Greg, who have really the pleasure, but sometimes the challenge of living here, this is nothing compared to what you might see on a warm summer day where we're in the height of tourist season. So I am extremely proud to be working with Supervisor Stefani as well as Chang with our San Francisco County Transportation Authority in introducing AB 1605. As you all might be aware, this is one of the most famous streets in the entire country. On average, we get about 2 million visitors a year, and people will be queuing up for about 10 hours at a time just to get their opportunity to drive down, take a few minutes to drive down this very, very famous street. And again, we are so proud that people come from all over the world to visit our city, but we also have to be acutely aware of how it impacts our residents. And so that really is the idea behind AB 1605 that Supervisor Stefani and the SFCTA and Chang have been working on and studying this. And finally, after the SFCTA study has come out, we've come to the conclusion that it is time to really start to pursue a reservation system similar to what people have to go through for Muir Woods. This is something that has already been done. It's been very successful for Muir Woods, and it's really the idea that you give people a reservation system so you don't have to have a long line, you don't have traffic constantly being blocked, but it also really allows this neighborhood not to feel the intense pressure of what it feels oftentimes on a daily and hourly basis. This is the very beginning of our legislative process. The authority would be given to the City and County of San Francisco, at which point we would turn it over to Supervisor Stefani and the board, and they would be coming up with their own plan of exactly how they want to implement it. We give them a lot of latitude in terms of what that is and how it would look, obviously through robust public input. But again, very excited to be working with everybody. We think that the time has come to really implement a reservation system so that tourists can enjoy this amazing landmark, but also so that our residents can get somewhat of their lives back. So with that, I'm going to introduce Supervisor Stefani, who's been an honor to be working with on this issue.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I want to first start out by thanking everyone who has actually helped get us to this point. Assemblymember Ting for introducing AB 1605, which will allow us to actually implement the reservation system. Also to Chang, the head of our Transportation Authority, and Andrew Heidel for actually dedicating so many hours to studying this issue here and coming forward with a resolution. They have been incredible partners to me, first as a legislative aide to Supervisors Alioto Pierre and Mark Farrell, and now as the District 2 Supervisor. I also want to thank Greg Brundage. He's the president of the Lombard Hill Association, and all the other community members who have been actually tireless advocates for this neighborhood. I am thrilled finally to be standing at the bottom of one of the most iconic streets in San Francisco to talk about real solutions to an issue we have tried to address for years. We all know, and there's so many tourists here right now, that San Francisco is one of the most beautiful places to visit. And the Crooked Street, as it's called, is one of the top tourist destinations in San Francisco, drawing over 2 million visitors every year. While tourists, we welcome them, are absolutely vital to our city and our economy, they also are presenting serious challenges for this neighborhood. And on a busy day, 20,000 people actually visit this area by foot and in their cars. So for about a decade now, I have worked to better manage these crowds by trying several different things. I started the Lombard Ambassador Program to welcome and assist visitors. We've added parking control officers to direct cars. We've re-engineered the flow of traffic with signage. We've increased police enforcement with add-back funds. And we even did a pilot program to shut the street down to traffic to see what that would do. While each of these actions has made an impact, they have been unable to properly manage the crowds with the rapid growth of visitors. And as I said in our last community meeting on this, we have yet to nail this. The Lombard Crooked Street reservation and pricing system is something we must try to address the congestion that jams all of these streets. and the surrounding areas. The bumper-to-bumper traffic is a major issue for this community. It's an environmental problem, and it can make this experience miserable for tourists. Rather than waiting in line for 45 minutes or longer, visitors will now be able to show up with a reservation and drive down the Crooked Street without a problem. For both residents and visitors, I'm excited that this pilot program is coming together. One of the steps necessary to make this happen is getting state approval. So again, I want to thank Assemblymember Ting for agreeing to sponsor AB 1605, which will allow San Francisco to actually implement the reservation and pricing system. I look forward to our continued work with the Transportation Authority to really try something that's going to make a difference in this area. Now I'd like to introduce the president of Lombard Hill Association and my friend, Greg Brundage.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. It's also a pleasure to meet Mr. Ting. Thank you. And obviously we've worked for the last 6 years with Supervisor Stefani and her predecessor, Mark Farrell. It has been a long haul. And during that whole period, things didn't get better. Traffic volume picked up as tourism took off in the city and everything. So it became an increasing hurdle for us. Supervisor Stefani mentioned Andrew Heidel, who has been tireless working on this project, and I think he's come up with what we all believe makes sense. It will free up the neighborhood, not just this street. Our group that we represent, everyone lives on the street and on Montclair, but the whole area is affected by the congestion in the summertime, and so it goes about 4 blocks each way in terms of the traffic jam. So this will help, and it's only, it's really the start. It's half of the hurdle that we have. The other hurdle is try to get some control over the pedestrian traffic in the future. But this is the first start, and gosh, I'm really excited that we're at this point. And as Supervisor Stefani said, it's a pilot program. We want to see where it'll go. We have unbelievable support for this. The paper this morning said that the support was mixed, but at the town hall meeting 2 months ago, it was overwhelming. There might have been 2 people that spoke up against it, and one of them was a tour bus guy. So the net of it is the support of the neighborhood is very strong behind this, and so we're really excited that this day has come, and we look forward to see where this goes. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, you've heard some of the reasons why we're all working together to do this. While we want this treasure to be seen by people from all around the world and all the visitors, we also want to be able to make sure that this neighborhood is livable for the people who do live here. So again, I want to thank the supervisor, thank Tilly Chang and SFCTA for all the great work they've done up to this point. Let me just see if there are any questions.
Yeah, a couple questions.
Yeah.
Can you address the toll aspect of it, where the money will go, what's that all about? And also, so if I get it straight, it has to be approved by the Assembly before the Board of Supervisors can approve it?
Right, so the city and county needs legislative authority from the state. So it needs to go through a legislative approval, then obviously needs to get signed by the governor. Okay. And that process will go through its process. Our time frame is we have till mid-September to get our bills to the governor's desk, at which he has till mid-October to sign them.
And we're talking tolls?
Well, that's really up to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, so what we're calling it a fee, and basically the fee will be used to operate the system and for any safety measures in the area and for our ambassador program.
And we're talking how much, $5?
We haven't decided yet, but we're looking at around $5. That would be the price point. So we have to decide that at the Transportation Authority. The Board of Supervisors sits as commissioners on the Transportation Authority, and we're the ones who would be advancing the proposal after we get state approval.
Are there any estimates on how much money that would generate? If it was $5 or $10?
Tilly. Hi, I'm Tilly Chang, and we're still studying the actual costs, but we're estimating that it could generate a couple of million a year to cover the cost of the pricing and reservation system, as well as the supporting measures. As Supervisor mentioned, the idea of ambassadors, parking control officers, perhaps even paid off-duty officers.
Would that money go back to the city to then allocate to that ambassador program, or would it go to the neighborhood association?
I believe the idea is to fund the program, so whoever the city would choose or the board would choose to implement the program would have that to administer the program.
Supervisor Stefani, I apologize, it's a little bit hard to hear from back here. Did you mention, is there going to be a physical gate or something that would keep people out? How would it work?
No, we're not looking at a physical gate or anything like that. Right now we're just looking at maybe license plate readers as a form of being able to either read the license that's going down that actually has the reservation, but we're not looking at putting any physical structure here.
You guys, I know this is just a pilot program, but in your research, is there any evidence that this will actually reduce traffic? If traffic is the big concern?
Yes, absolutely, and that's why we're doing it. And Muir Woods is an example of that. And like I said, the TA has been studying this for years. After us not being able to really nail this problem, we have tried so many different things. They're out here asking questions for months and months.
But I mean, in terms of like what will we see a 20% reduction? What are, can you kind of define the changes might look like?
Do you want to say that to? Okay.
Sure. Right now, we see folks, as Assemblymember Ting mentioned, about a 45-minute wait on any given day, and the span of that congestion can go 10 hours on a given weekday. The goal is to reduce that from the 3-block queue that you currently see to about a block and a half, or that first block, really, if possible, before you head down the Crooked Street. So we see this not only in Muir Woods, we see timed entry in a lot of different venues, whether it's museums, the Anne Frank House, even in Europe. So you see venues that are very popular using this method to manage the demand.
What about the possibility, some residents we talked to didn't like this idea, it could create more congestion, that's what they're concerned about, with people who maybe don't know coming out of town that there's a fee and don't want to pay the fee and end up turning around or trying to find parking to walk instead.
So outreach and education is absolutely critical, and for that reason we're already talking with SF Travel and all the various folks in our tourism industry to make sure that folks would understand that this is how you go about making the reservation. We would also have paid staff in the initial pilot so that we would have that customer service and ensure that people have a good experience. If you didn't have a reservation, you would be advised or where there is a reservation available, and we would help you to make that reservation on the spot.
Do you think, though, that informational campaign would be effective in reaching all these people that are coming from all different countries around the world? They're not going to come here and still think that they can drive down.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Sam, because we had a similar situation where the north parking lot on the Golden Gate Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge is probably the only thing more famous than Lombard Street in San Francisco. That north parking lot has now been closed for a number of different weekends, 3-day weekends, only open to tour buses. The Bridge Authority actually runs that. They've worked with SF Travel. They do signage up and down 19th Avenue as well as Doyle Drive to make sure residents have known that. And part of that was to relieve the congestion, because what ended up happening, similar to here, is people would queue to get into that north parking lot, and what it would do is create congestion going all the way through Park Presidio, through the park, up down 19th Avenue, and I live a block from 19th Avenue in the Sunset, and I'll tell you, the queue would go all the way down there. That's how much congestion that bridge would cause just for people waiting for that parking lot on a summer day. So we definitely know it can work with proper outreach and really with proper information. And now also with the internet, it's actually easier to get information out to people who are coming to visit. Other questions?
What type of opposition do you expect to be facing?
From the legislature, we don't anticipate really any opposition. Obviously, the discussion will really be trying to ensure that the neighborhood and the residents really have a pretty robust discussion, as we always do in San Francisco, to find exactly the right fee as well as really what the right thing to do for this neighborhood is.
One last question for you. You said that there's issues regarding congestion and safety. The congestion's obvious. The safety, is that more car break-ins that tourists get preyed upon? I guess Supervisor Stefani, can you address what are the safety issues that you're looking at?
Well, first of all, pedestrian safety. I mean, you could just look around you and see that this is a situation that with cars and pedestrians that could end up in a fatality or in injury. So we want to make sure that we have the right amount of parking control officers and police here to make sure that everyone's taken care of.
Have there been examples of people who have been hurt here? Based on, yes, there are a lot.
Definitely, and we can have Greg speak to that, but also, the car break-in thing too. That's one of the things that why we've had police officers here to make sure that our tourists are taken care of, because a lot of times they don't realize that they can't leave things in their cars. So we're trying to beef up the security here as well. Greg, do you want to say anything about that?
I would just add, in terms of the safety issue, you know, I've lived here 22 years, and I've lived here 22 years, and it's surprisingly a good record, to be honest. There's been about 4 major accidents. Cars flip over. There's been one little girl was pinned between the wall and a car, broke her leg, and some other things. And but there's been no deaths or anything like that I know of. The crime situation has picked up dramatically. It has gotten to be one of the worst parts of the city with the car break-ins and all that because of the tourists. And so what we're going to do here, I think, will help. So anyway.
Any more questions? All right, guys.
Great, thanks
thank
for
you.
coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.